Joel, what would your most relaxing day look like? Like if someone told you, I want you to take it easy, be super comfortable, would you like watch Netflix all day at your house? Maybe order some of your favorite takeout food?
Oh, Postmates is a good call. No, I feel like for me it'd probably be to go to the beach.
Joel, that's too soon.
Oh, do you remember the beach?
That was a good time of my life.
What about you?
I probably honestly also would have said the beach, but I think I love baking cookies. So baking cookies would be awesome. Maybe, you know, just reading a good book, having a nice home cooked meal with my family. Yeah.
What about you? If you could do anything and it would be the most relaxing day ever, what would you do?
In Genesis chapter 1, God is hard at work creating. He creates the evening, the morning, the beach, animals like Selah, and the planets. It all started in God's imagination. Then he gets to his masterpiece, and God creates humans as the pinnacle of his creation. Then the chapter says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work that he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all of his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all of the work of creating that he had done.
So the seventh day is special. It's holy, which means it's set apart. It's different than the other days. And God, on that day, it's like he stepped back and he looked out and he rested. And the day is holy. Did you hear that? God rested. But Joel, I'm super type A and I have a lot of APs and there's a lot of stuff going on. No, God rested. That word rest in scripture, it's Shabbat in Hebrew, where we get the word Sabbath from. And Sabbath means to cease or to stop or just to be done.
It isn't that God is just tired or worn out. The word Sabbath can also be translated as celebrate. It's like after a hard day's work, you look at all you have done and you delight in what you've made. God built a rhythm in the fabric of all creation, 6 and 1. Almost all cultures run on this. It's like everything else was set up to live in this cycle.
It's interesting that in Genesis, God blesses animals, and he says, be fruitful and multiply, and he blesses humans and says, be fruitful and multiply, and then he blesses a day. It's like God is saying, this day of Sabbath, this day of rest, it has life-giving potential to give you strength and creativity and energy. That's what rest can do for us. It can help us feel fruitful and full.
Another thing that we see in Genesis is the first time in Scripture that the word holy is used. The first thing that God makes holy is not a place, it's time.
Yeah, it's crazy because in the context of this, like all the other gods in the ancient Near East, they had a place, whether that was a shrine or a temple or on top of a mountain. But God doesn't make a place holy. He makes time holy. A Jewish rabbi named Abraham Joseph Heschel said it like this: the Sabbath is our great cathedral.
So to spend time with God, you don't need to go to Israel, to the Holy Land. You don't actually even need to go to church. You don't need a building. You Sabbath, you stop, you slow down, and you rest. Rest is where we meet with God.
I feel like I've spent most of my life running like 100 miles an hour, anxious and always wanting to kind of get to the next thing. I'm like a workaholic by nature, which that might be a new phrase for you, because in our culture that is kind of like a virtue. It's a good thing. It's not really seen as a sin. I remember people that asked me, how are you doing? And I would just say, I'm busy. And I was busy. But also I feel like busyness meant that I was important. Like if I'm busy, people like me and I'm cool and I'm important. Like when was the last time someone asked you how you were and you were like, I'm watching a ton of Netflix, I'm not doing anything with my life. Like no one says that. They say that they're busy. I think I was afraid to not be busy. Because I think deep down I thought that if I wasn't busy, then I didn't have value. My desire to be busy kind of revealed that I didn't believe what Jesus was saying about me. I didn't believe that it was what he did that defines me. I was believing that what I could do defines me. All of us, we kind of are in this boat in America where, we work harder than any other nation. Like, we work more hours than anybody else. We have so much to do, whether that's like recreation or social media, church, sports, and for a lot of us, it can feel like we're going 100 miles an hour. Corrie ten Boom, one of my idols, she said that if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. And there's a lot of truth in my own life in that, because both sin and busyness have the exact same effect. They cut you off from community, and they cut you off from God, from other people. And they can even cut you off from your own soul. Dallas Willard said that busyness is the greatest enemy of spiritual life. Without rest, I became emotionally unhealthy and exhausted. Even like my whole immune system kind of just was out of whack. Like, I remember getting sick because I was so stressed out during my first year of ministry. And I was in a place where I couldn't even think really well, because when you don't rest, your mind doesn't work as well. I don't know. It was having this devastating impact on my soul and my relationships. And honestly, I was the case study of not Sabbathing, the case study for what it looked like not to rest. So so I'm a recovering workaholic, recovering and still learning how to walk at the pace of Jesus. And it's a lot of work. Why is it more work to slow down than to speed up? Why is it more work to stop doing than to do? I'm still learning how to rest. But for me, Sabbath was really good news. When I was able to finally rest, I realized that my value and my worth didn't come from what I could do or accomplish or create. It wasn't in what I could work at. It was in the finished work of Jesus. What about you? When you don't rest, what are the results that come from that?
Sabbath comes for Israel when they need it most. Israel had been in slavery for 400 years. That's 400 years. Life in Egypt was comprised of literally just making bricks for Pharaoh all day, every day. Bricks, 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 eat, sleep, more bricks, wake up, tomorrow will be just like today. Bricks, bricks, bricks. When the Israelites are rescued, however, God gives them commands. And one of the most urgent is to take a Sabbath. So take a day of the week, unlike any other, with a day without bricks. A day where you remember that you are not enslaved. We need to remember that. We aren't just sum total of all the things that we can do. We are not slaves to how much we can produce. We aren't slaves to how much value people see in us. We are free people. When God gave the Israelites manna, He also gave them special instructions for the Sabbath.
Every morning when the Israelites woke up, they went out to find manna on the ground, which was the food that God provided them. They had been told to only gather enough for one day, and if they saved it, their food was filled with maggots. It had rotted overnight. But then we get to the seventh day, and God tells them that they should collect enough for 2 days. And so they go out, they collect enough for 2 days, they have more, they eat that day, and they save it for the next day. And then they wake up and it doesn't have maggots in it this time. And some of them go outside looking for more food because they had not prepared, and there's no food there. Because the seventh day is to be a day of rest.
Israel was slow to get it. Back then, Sabbath was not just like a command for them to not do anything for a day. Rest was actually a gift from God, for them to stop making bricks, for them to sit and enjoy it and worship. And it also is a gift for us.
So there's been a lot of debate about whether or not the Sabbath is a command that you and I need to follow today. The ancient Israelites followed it, but what about Christians? So what do we do? Is it something we have to do? For me, I really follow under that it's an invitation. It's something that God invites us to do. Like Naya said, it's a gift. It's made for you. It's wisdom. It's the way that God set our whole body up to work. We need this rhythm of rest.
For Jesus, the Sabbath was a day for him to get in trouble. In Mark chapter 2, it tells us,
One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?"
Now, there is no law in the Old Testament that you can't snack on the Sabbath. It just says don't do any work. The problem here is that they were trying to decide what work is. And so it's a bit ambiguous, so the rabbis and Pharisees built a fence around the law.
Yeah, they would take like one command, like keep the Sabbath, and they would build all these other things around it so you wouldn't break that one command. Like they would say you could only walk like 3/4 of a mile. They would say you could only like carry a certain amount of weight. Even you couldn't use elevators. Like they put laws around the laws to keep you from breaking the initial law. See, we have the exact opposite problem that the people back then had. It's not that we have too many laws and too many restrictions around keeping the Sabbath. It's that we have none. If we're honest, most Christians don't practice the Sabbath.
The traditional Sabbath was from 20 minutes before sundown on Friday evening to the same time Saturday afternoon. And we're going to invite you all to try it this weekend for a 24-hour period, whenever that works for you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's awesome. The Sabbath wasn't just a day for rest. It was a day for worship. It's not the same as like a day off. A day off is where you do everything you couldn't do during the week. The Sabbath is a day where you don't just accumulate more and more and try to achieve more. The Sabbath is a day for rest and worship.
Those are the two questions that we need to ask ourselves when we're thinking about what to do with our Sabbath. Is this rest? And is this worship?
Yeah, if the answer to both of those is yes, then that could be a part of your Sabbath. If it's yes to one of them and not the other, there's 6 other days for that. Let's make this a day fully for rest and worship. So what are you gonna do with your Sabbath? I mean, make it totally like within your preference and your personality.
Yeah, for some of us, exercise is Sabbath. For someone else, that's totally a burden. The Sabbath is a 24-hour period with your phone off, available to your friends, but where you don't have to do anything. Reconnect with your body, your soul, celebrate. It's a day to delight.
Yeah, maybe for you, you'd want to take a slow walk or read a psalm, share a meal with family and friends. Maybe spend some time alone.
Sing your favorite worship song, read a good book, eat a good meal, light a candle that smells good. Or is that just me? Take a good nap. I love that too.
Maybe practice gratitude. Help someone in need. Write a note to someone who's elderly. Play some music. Create something. What are you going to do with your Sabbath? The only criteria is it rest and is it worship? The Sabbath is an act of resistance. It's us saying no to our culture that wants us to accumulate more and to achieve more in order to have worth and value. In the midst of a culture that says we're not enough, the Sabbath is us saying it's by grace we have been saved through faith. And this is not because of ourselves, it's a gift from God, so we don't need to boast. The Sabbath is us putting a stake in the ground. Israel needed the Sabbath. Without the Sabbath, they would just want to go back to slavery. The Sabbath was the thing that they would put in their weekly rhythm to remind them of the new people that God had said they were. The Sabbath is the reminder of grace in their life.
Let's try it together this Friday. As HSM, we want to invite you to join into Sabbath with us.